Hey, what's up guys, Murgaman4 here, and we are now halfway through Series 10 of Doctor Who. Absolutely ridiculous, that's gone by way too quickly, but looking on the positive side, we still have half the series left. Anyways, Extremis aired a couple of days ago, and it's proved to be a pretty interesting episode. I think it's going to be a very controversial episode. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but a lot of people also didn't mind it, myself included. And the actual setup of the episode as well, the concept of it was very interesting and different from the kinds of things we've seen before in Doctor Who. Anyways, the episode begins with the Doctor traveling to this planet of executioners, which I think is a pretty neat idea. Obviously, these guys don't play a major role in the main plot of the episode, but we have a lot of the backstory for the Vault series arc. Which didn't play out quite as I was expecting. I thought that the vault was going to be opened, and speaking of the vault, we do know now who was in the vault. It was Missy. Raise your hand if you guessed it was going to be Missy, because that was fairly obvious from very early on, so I wasn't surprised. I was actually pretty happy with the way they did it. I saw a couple of people complaining that it was just, done so quickly and with just like a throwaway line, but I kind of liked that. Like when you see Missy first appear on screen, it's pretty obvious that that's who it's going to be. Personally, I really appreciated that they didn't make a huge deal out of it. It's very subtle, and I think that makes a lot more sense because, of course, the characters in the episode, it's not going to be a surprise for them. They obviously know who's in it, and so for them, it shouldn't be this massive deal about who's in the vault. So I think it made it a lot more grounded. But anyways, we've known for a long time that Missy was going to be an Extremis, and this isn't the kind of role I was expecting from her in the episode. I thought that she was going to be playing a role in the main events of the story themselves, but the only times we ever see her in this episode is in flashback. Once again, as I mentioned, I thought that the vault was actually going to be opened, but it wasn't opened in this episode. I hope that all the flashbacks in this episode and the teasing of the opening of the vault are paid off in the later episodes of this story, because this is a three-part story. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, this is the first part of a three-part story. And I think if we don't explore that concept any further in the next couple of episodes, then it's kind of pointless to have all those flashbacks in there in this particular episode. I think that there needs to be a specific reason why we're learning about what's in the vault now, and I think that needs to be specific to the story that's currently playing out. So especially at the end of the episode when it's teased that the Doctor might actually open the vault and let Missy out so that she can assist him, if that doesn't end up going anywhere, I'm going to be massively disappointed. But anyways, normally when I do these reviews, I talk about this stuff in chronological order as they appeared in the episode, but of course the episode was a little bit out of order because we have the regular events of the episode itself as experienced by the characters, but interspersed throughout the episode from the beginning all the way to the very end, we get these flashbacks of how Missy came to be in the vault in the first place. And so she's to be executed by these executioners. We don't know why. We also don't know how she escaped from the Daleks. That's just left open-ended. Personally, I don't think that's a big deal, although I think some sort of explanation through the dialogue might have been a little bit helpful, but I'm not too picky about that. But anyways, because all of these sequences are interspersed throughout the episode, I'm just going to talk about all of the Missy stuff at once, just, for convenience sake. And so yeah, as I said, Missy doesn't play a main role in the episode itself. There are some parallels with what's going on in the episode, and of course we see the Doctor talking to Missy in the vault. Just basing off of this episode itself, I don't see the reason for these flashbacks being included in this episode, so it definitely needs to have a payoff in one of the next two parts of the story. Otherwise, it feels to me like it's just in there for the sake of being in there. And so the Doctor is taken to be Missy's executioner because, according to some sort of law or whatever of some code, I think, that the execution has to be carried out by another Time Lord, and so the Doctor's chosen. And of course he doesn't actually execute her, which makes sense. I think it would be out of character for the Doctor to execute her, because we've seen so many times in the past the Doctor doesn't want to kill the Master. He wants to save him or her, depending on the incarnation. And so I think that this makes perfect sense that he'd be keeping her locked up in a vault, protecting her, make sure that she doesn't get into any mischief, but of course he wasn't actually going to kill her. And this brings up an interesting thing. If he's supposed to guard the vault for 1,000 years, I'm highly doubtful that he's been guarding it for 1,000 years at this point that we see him in the series. But does this mean that Missy will have aged significantly by the time that the vault does get opened? Because obviously when we've seen the Doctor before over these long periods of times, his body is obviously physically aged. So are we going to see an aged Missy? I don't know, just a little side note. Also, one quick thing, as the Doctor executes Missy, this is Gallifrey returns. This Gallifrey is one of my all-time favorite tracks in all of Doctor Who. I absolutely adore it to pieces. I'm pretty sure the last time we had a variation of it was in The Time of the Doctor, which is just ridiculous considering we had a Gallifrey-based episode in 2015, but it didn't use the Gallifrey theme at all. And I'm like, why? And here, as the Doctor saying, you know, as part of my duty, as a member of the Prydonian chapter, I will guard this body for 1,000 years. And there's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful rendition of This Is Gallifrey. And I did a double take at first. I mean, it wasn't something visually. I did an oral double take, and I replayed the scene a few times just because of how good it felt to hear that again. And so not particularly significant to the episode, but it just made me so happy to hear it again. Also in these flashback sequences, we see Nardole. He's followed the Doctor on Riversong's orders, and so we get to learn a little bit more about how he came to travel with the Doctor, and the Doctor didn't actually take him with him when he left Beryllium. He obviously rebuilt Nardole there, but Nardole was sent by Riversong, I guess just to keep an eye on the Doctor. And so that's good that we're getting a little bit more information as to why Nardole did end up traveling with the Doctor. I'm not sure why that's coming now, halfway through the series. I think that's a little bit dumb. In the context of how this is revealed, obviously it had to be done with the Missy execution stuff, but I think they could have just easily done that in another way and had that in the pilot, or even the return of Dr. Mysterio. Because there's no reason for that to be a mystery. Speaking of Nardole, he's good in this episode. He's actually good. I really enjoyed him in this. And for once I actually felt like he had a purpose. I know last week I was talking about how he didn't feel like he was, you know, being a detriment to the episode or anything. But last week I still felt like you could have had the episode without him. Here, Nardole definitely plays a major role in the episode. And he's honestly really enjoyable in this. I didn't think I would be saying that, but this is easily Nardole's best episode so far. And I think that they got his characterization spot on. It's a perfect balance between comic relief and a serious side to his character. Matt Lucas did a great job. And he's great throughout the episode. He's obviously proving himself to not be the idiot that he's been shown to be in the past. He's figuring a lot of the stuff out. And the major reveal of the episode, which I'm going to talk about later, that's figured out by him. And what I really like about it is he doesn't just discover it by accident, like he doesn't discover this by reading the Veritas. He figures this out on his own just based off of what he's seeing, and that gives a whole new level to Nardole. And here, he has a purpose, which is just so good. If Nardole had been characterized like this from the very beginning, I would have been a lot more on board with his character, and I honestly think that for the very first time, he definitely benefited the episode. Anyways, after getting all that stuff out of the way, you know, as I said, because of the way it's set up, I'm kind of talking about it out of order. The main plot kicks off when the Pope himself comes to the Doctor for assistance. There's this book, the Veritas, which literally is translated to the truth. And everybody who reads it or works on the translation for it end up committing suicide. And before the episode aired, of course, this concept was in the synopsis, and I thought it was really intriguing. And the mystery was really interesting throughout this episode as well, as to why everyone was committing suicide after they read the Veritas. And I have to say, once again, the payoff with the twist was a little bit disappointing because the consequences aren't as severe. It turns out that they're actually doing this to save themselves, which is definitely a contrast to how the Cardinal described it earlier in the episode. They read the Veritas and they chose Hell. That just makes it seem a lot more ominous. And so it was a little bit of a letdown for me because the stakes aren't as high. But yeah, so we have the Pope and the Catholic Church involved in this. The Pope doesn't really play a large role. He just kind of adds a bit more seriousness to the threat of the episode, gives it a lot more severity, I guess. One quick note about the Pope. A couple of times he speaks English, but a couple of times we also don't hear him speaking English. Now when he appears in Bill's flat and you don't hear him speaking English, it can be inferred that it's from Penny's perspective, or something like that, because she obviously wouldn't have the TARDIS translators going. But there's one point in the episode where the Pope talks directly to the Doctor, and he's not speaking in English, and then Cardinal Angelo translates for the Doctor, which is a little bit weird that Stephen Moffat would just go and forget TARDIS translation matrix, especially since the Pope spoke a couple of times in English earlier in the episode. But yeah, it was just a little bit of an inconsistency that I found. Cardinal Angelo plays a bigger role in this, and I quite liked his character. Unfortunately, he was killed off about maybe halfway through the episode, but I thought that the actor was really good. I found it really enjoyable to watch, and he gave a good amount of gravitas to the situations that he was describing. But yeah, so of course we get to visit the Hereticum, which is the Vatican's secret library of blasphemy, which I think is an excellent concept, and in the center of it is the Veritas, the truth. Now that we're in the Hereticum, we're starting to see a bit more of the consequences of the Doctor's blindness when this light appears around the corner and the Doctor can't see it at all. Of course, he has the sonic sunglasses. The sonic sunglasses are back, yes, and you know what? I hated the sonic sunglasses in Series 9, but they're not bad here. They actually have a purpose. They seemed really pointless all throughout Series 9, but here they actually were used for a purpose that makes sense. They're helping him to be able to process his surroundings because obviously he can't see, but the sonic sunglasses are enabling him to get that information fed to him psychically, which I think is really clever. And of course he also has a sonic screwdriver still, which he uses throughout the episode. And so these aren't sonic sunglasses as a replacement for the sonic screwdriver. They're more of an addition just to assist him with his blindness a little bit, which I thought was really good. And so, you know what? Sonic shades were good in this episode. But of course the sonic shades can't necessarily detect stuff like light. And so it leads to a couple of funny moments where the Doctor has no idea what's going on, even though there's something very obvious right in front of him. And of course he's also pretending that he's not blind. So it lends to some pretty funny situations. So speaking of the Doctor's blindness, I think throughout the episode it was used to pretty decent effect. At one point he does temporarily gain his sight back, which honestly was completely pointless. At the very least, he didn't gain his sight back and magically have an answer for the resolution of the episode. That was good. But now that I think about it, when he did have his sight, honestly, there was nothing that he did with it. I mean, I guess the only thing was that it was able to help him escape the monks when they appeared. But other than that, it was pretty useless and just seemed like a waste of borrowing from the future, especially since some of the consequences that he listed: no regenerations, blindness for all future regenerations, possible death in like 20 minutes or something. Those are severe consequences, and his vision never even got fully there, and it didn't really help him in the slightest. So that just felt kind of pointless to me. And of course we find out later that the consequences are irrelevant. Anyways, now I've mentioned the monks. These guys are more of a background presence in this episode. I'm assuming they're going to be a lot more in the forefront in the next two episodes. And we don't see them at all for about the first half of the episode, I think. But these things looked and sounded really, really creepy. These are some great designs for a villain. And obviously we don't know their motives yet. We don't know their intentions yet. We learn that they're this force that's trying to invade Earth. And thankfully these guys do not seem like the kind of villain that's being misunderstood like we had in the first few episodes of Series 10. So that's good. It looks like we're getting back into the veins of a classic Monster of the Week kind of thing. Although this is going to be played out over 3 weeks. But yeah, the designs on these things were amazing, and I can't wait to see them in an even more significant role in the next couple of weeks. Anyways, meanwhile, Bill and Nardole are going off doing a bit of investigation on their own. I really like the scene where they're trying to find the guy who shot himself in the Hereticum, and Nardole, who the Doctor is told to protect Bill. He's trying to tell Bill to stay behind him, but Bill is definitely not taking any of that. And so she's very clearly a strong, independent character, which we've seen in past episodes as well. But I like this, that she's not going to let Nardole defend her because she can defend herself. And that was just really nice to see. Anyways, they discover another weird light, and they go through it, and it turns out it's some sort of portal. And yeah, so then they discover this portal room that'll take them to different places around the world. We've got the Hereticum, obviously. There's the Pentagon. They go to CERN. Later they go to the White House. Anyway, CERN is where we start to get our first clues as to what is contained in the Veritas. As all the scientists at CERN are about to commit a mass suicide, and Nardole and Bill walk into this. And one of the scientists is surprised that they haven't read the Veritas and says, okay, well, say a number. Pick any number that you want, and when I hit this table, say it. So he hits it. They both say the same number. Does it again, they both say the same number. Does it again, they both say the same number. And then he hits the table again, and then he joins in, and they're all saying the same number. Then all the scientists are saying the same number. And it's really kind of eerie. They're doing this as the countdown to their demise is going on, and then Nardole and Bill escape. And as I mentioned earlier, this is where Nardole begins to piece everything together. And he's shown to be an actually really intelligent person here. He discovers that they're actually in some sort of computer program, some sort of simulation. They don't know when or how they even got into the simulation. Then Nardole realizes, what if they are part of the simulation too? What if they get out of these lights that are projecting these holographic simulations? And so he sticks his hand out of the light, and it turns out, yes, he's a part of the simulation. And so this was a pretty shocking moment, a big reveal, because of course the whole time we think that this is really happening, and Bill watches the Nardole simulation disappear from existence. She ends up finding the Doctor in the White House. The President has read the Veritas and committed suicide, and the Doctor has just listened to the Veritas. And so now he knows what's going on. Bill now knows because she witnessed Nardole, and Bill's simulation then disappears. Anyways, the Doctor has read the Veritas, and it turns out that all these simulated worlds are there so that this demon that I guess controls these monks is using it as a practice run until they can get it right, until they know the proper, perfect way to invade the Earth and how they can defeat every possible obstacle. And I think that that's a really cool concept, and why has that not really been used before? That's really clever. That they have some sort of exact perfect simulation that they can do test runs on so that they know exactly what to expect. That's really neat. And here we have the resolution to the episode, I suppose. The Doctor figures out that because he's been blind and using the sonic sunglasses, they have a memory imprint of the last few hours, and even though he's part of a computer program, he still has like a psychic link to the sonic sunglasses, and he can use those to email the real Doctor everything that's happened, so that the Doctor in the real world can get a warning about what's coming. And so I think this might be a little bit far-fetched, but it makes sense. I mean, if this simulation is recreating everything as accurately as it appears to be, why shouldn't the sonic sunglasses simulation be able to record the best of the simulation and then send that off to something in the real world? It's using the same kind of technology and stuff. And so yeah, this kind of resolves the events of this episode, and it's one giant setup into the next one as the Doctor receives this recording. And it turns out everything we see in Extremis up to this point, except for the flashbacks, are what the Doctor has just seen, or I guess heard, on his sonic sunglasses about these monks that are going to be coming and invading the Earth. Anyways, as I mentioned earlier, the Doctor appears to confide in Missy, saying that he might need her help. And so pretty much this whole episode doesn't happen in the real world. This actually really reminds me of the Sherlock episode, The Abominable Bride, where most of that episode took place in a theoretical dream sequence where Sherlock was trying to figure out another mystery in the dream that connected to the mystery of Moriarty that could help him solve that. And in the real world, everything that happened in that episode was Sherlock got off a plane and into a car. And in this one, literally all that happens in the real world in this episode, discounting all the flashbacks, is the Doctor watches a video and stands outside the vault. That's basically everything that happens in the real world in this episode, and so it's kind of reminiscent of that. And the episode doesn't end on a cliffhanger. I was anticipating a cliffhanger because it's the first part of a three-parter, but yes, we don't get a cliffhanger. It's just more of a this is what's coming. Be prepared. And so this is basically a glorified setup. Now we know everything that we need to know before going into the actual meat of this story, and so now we can go in prepared and kind of know a little bit more about who the monks are and what they're doing. But yeah, so that is Extremis. For the purposes of this review, I'm going to give this episode a rating, but I don't really like to judge individual episodes before being able to see the whole story in scope, because obviously some of my concerns that I might have about this episode could very well be answered in the upcoming 2 episodes, and there are certain elements of this that are hopefully going to be paid off very well in The Pyramid at the End of the World and The Lie of the Land. Looking at it just on its own, I did enjoy the episode. I thought that the twist was really good. Once again, Nardole was great. I enjoyed the scenes with Missy, though I'm still not sure how they fit into it properly. And it was definitely a very good setup. I thought that the whole concept around the Veritas was a little bit of a letdown because it's basically just set up. There's not really any true meat to this episode, but I thought it was fairly enjoyable nonetheless. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10, as I've done so many episodes of this series, so once again, very, very consistent. I think I'm going to put it on par with the pilot. I've been debating whether to put it above or below, so I think I'm just going to put it dead even with the pilot. And yeah, so that brings my series average to 7.58 out of 10. Another good episode. Not incredible, but good, and we'll have to see how this plays out in the next 2 parts of the story. So of course next week we have The Pyramid at the End of the World, which is a continuation of Extremis, and is obviously where the main invasion is going to begin. And so hopefully we'll get a great payoff to this episode. And I really hope that this isn't going to disappoint, because we've had a massive build up here. So there better be something massive going on in the next 2 episodes. Anyways, please put your thoughts below on Extremis. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Was it too confusing? Was it too much setup? Anyways, that's been my review of Extremis. Next week I'll be back with The Pyramid at the End of the World. I hope you enjoyed. And Murderman4 over and out. I'll see you guys later.